Hello, History of Being Human podcast listeners. This is Noel with a brief announcement that will probably devolve into a screed, but I do want to explain some changes. This show for me has always been a labor of love. I've loved producing the show. I've loved speaking to the guests. I've really appreciated your feedback and the interactions I've had because of it. And of course, I find it very rewarding when people find value in the programming. At times, there may seem like there is no underlying cohesion in the topics that I talk about, but I will say that there is one unifying factor, and that is I enjoy them. History, anthropology, paleontology, physics, psychology, and yes, the other P word, philosophy. I enjoy all of it. And of course, that will continue, because the supply of topics I find compelling is seemingly inexhaustible. I will never run out of things that I find interesting to talk about. But one thing that I've never done with this podcast is actively promote it. You'll notice a little blurb at the end of my episodes from time to time about liking, subscribing, things like that. But I haven't actively promoted my podcast really in any way, even one-on-one when I'm talking to other people. And the reason for that, I think, is twofold. First, I have to admit, I'm not much of a promoter. It's just not who I am. It's foreign to my nature. The other reason is that the energy and time that I do have to devote to the podcast, because I do have a full-time job also, is devoted to making content. Learning is really where my heart is, and the best way that I've found to learn a topic is to study it and present it. I'm sure you know if you've ever tried to present a topic to a group of people, you yourself learn far more by the preparation than your audience did by listening to you. So there's that also. But there's another factor I want to bring up. And I have to do a little introspection on this and be careful how I say it, because the last thing I want to do is come across like some kind of moral crusader, or even worse, some kind of pompous, arrogant, blowhard know-it-all. But of course, to express an opinion is to take a risk. So here goes. The vast majority of people on this planet have access to more and better information and perspective than at any other time in human history. And I know that doesn't apply to everyone, whether through state control or poverty or lack of infrastructure. Many have not been able to join the information revolution. But in the aggregate, it's very hard to deny that there is much more access to information. And it seems to me, or at least I'd hope, that there would be some discernible benefits to our society. Apply it properly and become more enlightened, equitable, fair, just, rational people. But how do I say this? That doesn't seem to be happening. The information glut and the echo chamber effect have instead led to very surprising levels of ignorance, arrogance, and superstition. It's not the same old superstitions, but they are just as fact-free, just as self-serving and motivated in their reasoning as any superstition ever. More smug in their certainty, opinionated, dogmatic in their views. Take any bias you have, any opinion you hold, and you can back it up with endless facts. Because I guarantee the facts are out there and they come very cheap. You can, through, and I'm going to use scare quotes, doing your own research, convince yourself that any position, no matter how absurd, no matter whether it maps anywhere onto reality or not only should be respected, but could become normative. You can judge others by the degree to which they enter into your delusion with you. I'm sure we just have more tools at our disposal now to reinforce our biases. But it's apparent to me that far from making us more compassionate, understanding, tolerant, it seems that we're much more arrogant, ignorant, and divisive. And before I get too carried away by my own rhetoric, I want to point out, this is just human nature revealing itself in a new environment, with new circumstances, magnifying some of our less admirable traits and suppressing some of our better nature, I guess you could say. And really, on the one hand, what else would you expect from what are now 8 billion invasive apes running around the planet in trousers? Myself included. I am 100% prone to everything I just accused others of doing. But on the other hand, I realize that I'm capable of being more open, more receptive to new information, less entrenched in my opinions. And I think those are the aspects of our nature that are much more likely to promote happiness and flourishing. It reminds me of a variation of the Native American story about the two wolves. You've all heard the story. Two wolves living inside of you. Which one is going to live? The one that you feed. Well, so much of what I listen to and expose myself to feeds the wolf of dogmatism, entrenchment, and just generally narrowing of my mind. And the best way I could say it is, I guess, that this podcast is my attempt to feed the other wolf inside myself, and maybe in society as well. The wolf of perspective, openness, acknowledgement of our shared common foibles. If there's any reason I am attracted to topics that don't paint us in the most flattering light, and you can't listen to my podcast for any length of time without realizing the allure those topics have for me, it's not because I'm some kind of misanthrope, and I'm certainly no ethical nihilist. I do realize that human beings are capable of acts of great beauty and altruism, and I truly believe that the desire to do the right thing and to be a good person is a very important motivating factor. But I also have to admit that a lot of what we call history seems better explained by an appeal to the dark triad type features of human nature: narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism. And of course, you could add to that solipsism, tribalism, demonization and dehumanization of others, and the relentless pursuit of sex, money, power, and fame. But the truth is, all of human nature, all of the good parts, all of the bad parts, have created history, have brought us to where we are today, and will continue to take us into the future. If you care about our past and future, there's a combination of two ways to address it. One is you can praise what's good in us, things that have helped humanity. The other is that you can blame or castigate or even mock those things that are bad in us, things that have hurt humanity. Both approaches tend toward the same end. But frankly, I think one of them's a lot more fun than the other one. So if this all seems like a lengthy justification for my schadenfreude, me trying to claim that I can somehow turn it to the common good, that might be all it is. But I am conscious of that motivation, and it does influence the topics I choose to talk about and the emphasis I place on those topics. So now getting back to the original announcement, the podcast is going to change in a couple of key ways. One is you're going to hear commercials during the episodes. I hope you, like me, don't find them too distracting or annoying. I listen to several podcasts that have commercials. They don't seem to distract me or disrupt the flow of the program too badly. This was a step I took in moving to a new platform, one that is going to help me promote and market the podcast and encourage me to put out episodes much more regularly, both of which I consider good things. And that brings up two other changes. One is the History of Being Human podcast will be on Instagram. I have actually had an Instagram account for the show for a couple of years now, but to call it pretty much a dead account is optimistic. Until this last episode, I really haven't posted anything of value on that Instagram account. But now, even though I did go into it kicking and screaming, I'm going to post announcements of new episodes, show notes, links, pictures, maybe some maps, and I'll try to make it worth your while to subscribe to the History of Being Human podcast on Instagram. I'm not sure yet if I'll actually start paying attention to my Twitter account or my YouTube account or any of the other social links that have been set up for me in the past. But so far this Instagram thing has been relatively painless, so I'll keep that going. And just one more announcement. In my back catalog, I have several episodes that either were pretty poorly produced, pretty shoddy workmanship because I had no idea what I was doing, or they only got a few hundred listens because the podcast was so new. So it's been suggested to me, and I'm going to take the suggestion that I delete them from the old catalog, and because they're part of the corpus, the canon of the History of Being Human podcast, that I dust them off, polish them up a little bit, and re-release them. And I don't mean release the old episode, I mean remaster, re-record the entire thing, and release it as a new episode. So if something comes up in your podcast feed, and it looks vaguely familiar, you do not have to re-listen to it. They won't all be the same. There will be new information, but there will be quite a bit of overlap. And it will take me a while to go through the episodes that I want to do that with, and they will be interspersed between totally brand new content. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for persisting with me through this announcement. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions, comments, thobhpodcast@gmail.com. As always, that will not change, nor will my gratitude to you for taking the time to listen.